Hey guys, Dylan from the Geek Duo here, and today I'll be bringing you my attempt to match the new characters we've seen in the Volume 9 trailers to corresponding Alice in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass, etc., or potentially Wizard of Oz or Oz the Great and Powerful characters, because there's been some very clear parallels for the majority of the characters we've been shown. So we'll go through in order of where I think they appear in the story based on the location that they're seen. The first one is this beach woman. We can tell it's a woman because of the dress. Yeah, we've got nothing to go off of with her. No character I can really think of to tie her. Next up, we have Little, and this character is based off of the mouse from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Not the dormouse that is often seen with the Hatter and the March Hare. It's the first character that Alice meets when she arrives in Wonderland, and it's the first talking character. She scares it by mentioning her cat. It's very clear that there are similarities between these two characters. There's also that they seem to take things literally, and they have a roundabout way of speaking. I haven't seen anyone who does or doesn't look like you when asked whether they've seen any other humans, or the mouse is trying to tell dry, boring stories in order to make a person dry up after they've been dunked in water. Next up, we've got the Mouse Village, and this is the Field of Mice from The Wizard of Oz. A group of talking mice that Dorothy and her group meet along the path to the Emerald City, specifically on the borders of the poppy field. And these fields of mice, they help save the protagonists from the deadly plants after their leader had been saved by the Tin Man. They even give Dorothy a whistle to blow if she ever needs their aid, and they will come and help her. And since we see this mouse village in front of the vines that have captured Weiss and Blake, they could be a similar story of them saving the people from a deadly plant. Next up, we have this cat. It's very obviously the Cheshire Cat from pretty much all Alice in Wonderland stories. It seems to be taking on the usual role of the semi-helpful but extremely vague guide. Helps lead the protagonists through the lands while also having their hand in every pot, because in the cartoon Alice in Wonderland, you see it in the Red Queen's castle. Don't know what its goal is, but it seems like it'd be the kind of character who would talking to everyone, and then eventually, no matter which side wins any altercation, it is in their favor. Next up, we have the Toy Town, which I've related to the Munchkin Town from Wizard of Oz. Initially, I had the Field of Mice, the Mice Village, as the Munchkins, but after finding out that there was actually a group of mice, and that there wasn't any other, towns worth of people in either of the stories, I just grouped these characters in with the friendly group that helped the protagonists in the beginning of their journey. The only issue is the seeming proximity between Toy Town and the Chess Queen's castle, potentially making them her loyal subjects. Next up, we see them in the Toy Town, and this is the talking raccoon that steals Yang's arm. And that's Rocket Raccoon. I know I said that these were all either going to be Alice in Wonderland or Wizard of Oz characters, but there's no talking raccoon in any of this story. There's no kleptomanic peddler in any of the stories. However, there is a kleptomanic talking raccoon from Marvel that has an obsession with taking people's prosthetic parts, specifically an arm. Next up, we have these model soldiers, and these are the first of the new characters that have multiple potential inspirations. These model soldiers are likely just a group of stepping stone antagonists for our protagonists to deal with. meaning that they may well be based off of either the card soldiers from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland or the Winkies from Oz the Great and Powerful. The story, not the movie. The problem with both of these options is that these toy soldiers, they seem to be the foot soldiers for the chess queen, whereas these two options are the lackeys of actual evil characters. The first one's being willing, the second one's being subjugated. And I don't actually see that being the outcome with the porcelain queen, or the chess queen, or whichever you want to call her, which I'll get to in her character. So there's not that clear, other than it's just a group of faceless soldiers set as a stepping stone. I would have also thrown in the winged monkeys from Wizard of Oz as a potential parallel. However, since we've already seen winged Berengals in the story, I'm just choosing to ignore that parallel, try and keep it simple to 1-to-1, or sometimes 2-to-1. Next up is the porcelain or chess queen, or whichever you want to refer to them as. And this is very clearly the Red Queen from Alice Through the Looking Glass, or Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Saw There. I don't know which one's the actual title, I've heard it both. The Red Queen often gets confused with the Queen of Hearts. However, they are very distinctly different characters from two very different stories. And this confusion is why I have issues with the toy soldiers being based off of the card soldiers. Because that just, with it very clearly being the Red Queen, not the Queen of Hearts, just having them as the subject would be muddying the reference a bit too much for my liking. So the Red Queen, obviously chess inspired. It's literally the queen piece from the red side of the chess set, and they're opposed to the White Queen and their faction, which Alice is allied with. However, they're not an evil character, and they're actually at points rather helpful towards Alice, such as introducing her to the chess game that Through the Looking Glass is based off of, and explaining what her role in it would be, how she can participate in everything. So, well, they are the main antagonist, at least in that section. I don't see them ultimately being the big bad of this season. And that is again why I said there is already the grey area between the potential inspirations for the model soldiers and the actual model soldiers themselves. Next up is this grasshopper looking character with the third eye. And this is based off of the hookah caterpillar from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is another basic one-to-one reference. They're an enlarged bug type character, has an additional unique feature, and asks the main protagonist one of a 5 W's question. Who are you? What are you? We even see the grasshopper wielding what appears to be a smoking pipe in the second trailer, which likely relates to what I've been calling the fog of despair, because they have the smoke and they seem to blow it towards the camera. Next up, we have this bestial creature, who I'm just going to refer to as the Beast, and that is the Jabberwocky from the Jabberwocky poem. Creature often believed to be a part of Alice in Wonderland. It's not. It's actually from a separate poem, just written by the same writer. Like, that is the only thing linking the Jabberwocky to Wonderland. Unless, of course, you count the live-action movie directed by Tim Burton. Now, I personally do not like this parallel, specifically it being the Jabberwocky, because as I touch on in my Swords of RWBY, this will basically cement the Jean gets the Vorpal sword theory. And since I'm more partial to the ideas that I've put in that video, if this turns out to be the Jabberwocky, that video is automatically invalidated. But unfortunately, I can't find another option in either Wonderland or Oz that would work as a parallel. Next up, we have this hat-wearing bird. They're only seen for a couple of frames in the second trailer, specifically in the Mushroom Forest market area. And similarly to the Beast, there weren't really any parallels could have inspired this character, bar one. And that being the Griffin from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Mainly because they're both bird-adjacent creatures. And it's highly probable based on the area that this bird will be able to talk. The Griffin could talk. Though this bird does also have the eye fire that is often associated with a maiden. So this could well be a person that has magic, either transformed involuntarily into a bird, can turn into a bird at will, probably originated in Remnant, or has met the gods. Don't know, I just feel like this bird's going to be a big character. And that is part of the reason why it's gotten so little screen time in the trailer. I could have also related it to the Mad Hatter, since there's as much linking that with them both wearing hats. However, like I touched on with the Winged Monkeys, there's already a Mad Hatter in the story, that being Neo, so I don't want to have the same inspiration for two different characters. Next up, we have this rider on the back of some creature, I guess. They only appear in the trailer for about half a second, and we don't get a look at who the person riding actually is. All we see is the briefest glimpse of their shoe, a little bit of ankle and pants, and that's all we see. I'm just going off of these shoes don't match any of the characters we've already seen, nor the ones that we're familiar with, so this is a different character to any of the others. I will, however, try and figure out this beast, because it's got the legs of basically a rabbit, though it's galloping across the screen like deer, horse, basically a rideable mount. So I'm just saying, whoever this person is, they're riding on top of a jackalope. Got nothing to base that theory off of. We're going to get a jackalope this season. Next up, and yet another character that we don't really have much to go off of, is this blacksmith character. The mysterious blacksmith lady, they've appeared in both trailers in front of this wall of fire. No idea where this could be, by the way. None of the, unless of course it's the volcano area, none of the areas seem like they'd have just a wall of fire. All we're going off of is this woman seems to have some mechanical steampunk vibe going with her, based on what the silhouette looks like. Looks like there's pipes and or metal parts surrounding her. She's in a forge of sorts with weapons lining the wall. Now there is a theory that has popped up since the second trailer that this woman could be the person who says, what if you could shed ruby rose like a coat? And therefore people have thought maybe this person is more than just a weaponsmith. Maybe they're an identity smith and could take a person and turn them into someone else. I reckon it'd be very interesting to touch on with the themes that have been implied. Finally, the last new character that we see in any of the trailers, any of the teasers or anything is this bird. It's a shoebill. I'm joking. It's the Knight. We see them briefly in the first trailer, and that is it. And I've decided, well, they're the White Knight. They're literally a knight. They're wearing white armor. That's all there really is. Until you look at, again, the theories. And that being that this knight is Jean, who has had his identity changed by the Forge Lady. And if you actually look at the description of the White Knight character, bumbling, like friendly to the protagonists and everything, intelligent. I'm saying that because he's a inventor in the story, making Wonderland-like inventions, so obviously they're batshit crazy. And Jean, he's a strategist, he's bumbling, he's friendly to our protagonists and everything. The White Knight in the story saves Alice. This knight could save our heroes. Now, there are some notable characters from the Wonderland Looking Glass mythos that are very clearly missing from these trailers, such as the March Hare, the Dormouse, the Red and White King, the Red Knight, the White Rabbit. There may be even more important characters that are yet to be shown for this volume. Or they may be characters later on down the track, because Wonderlandians are not necessarily only based off of characters in Wonderland. Like, as I said, Neo is the Mad Hatter. She was introduced in Volume 2. So, well before the Ever After was even brought to our attention. There is also the possibility, well, for one, White Rabbit could be the Jackalope. Just throwing that out there, I've just thought of it. But any of the characters that we've seen could also have a secondary inspiration as well, like how Yang is Goldilocks and the Beast. But that's the best I could do to relate these characters that we've seen to characters that exist in the Wonderland or Oz, because Wizard of Oz is a big inspiration for this story, so it would make sense that this mystical place could also touch upon it. We could also have some Neverland characters. We haven't had any of those in the story yet. This would be the kind of place to introduce them as well, but all of these could be correct. None of them could be correct. The characters that I've suggested could well shape the story that the characters that have been yet to be introduced could take, or they could just be, yeah, these are these characters, but we've changed their story completely. Who knows? But this is just the characters that I think best fit what we've seen from the new characters. So, with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one.